Veep just aired its final season on HBO, and it has received 9 Emmy nominations, including Best Comedy Series and Best Production Design. I'm Zach Laws of Gold Derby, and with me now are Kimberly, Wannop, and David Smith. They are 2 of the nominated set decorators. I hope I got both of your names right. First of all, let me just ask you, Kimberly, this first. You have worked on the show for the last 2 seasons. Talk a bit about saying goodbye to Veep. What was that experience like for you? Emotional, relief?
It was very emotional because, we started the season and then had to stop it the year before because of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's cancer. So we started up already saying goodbye and then really had to shut it down. And thank God it all turned out well and came back pretty much a year to the day and started up the last season again. And it really was episode by episode kind of like, wow, this is the last, is this the last one? This is the last, 702, 703. Like it did all season occur to us that this was the last time, and each set saying goodbye to it. And it was hard. It was hard because number one, it was a hard show. And number two, being on the show for a couple seasons, I love the characters and I love the growth that I've had with them, and it's hard to say goodbye to them. So it was hard.
Now, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the only episode of Veep you've ever worked on was the final episode. Is that right?
Yes. Isn't that? Yes, it's rather ironic, isn't it?
Yes. So, what was that experience like for you? First of all, how did you come to be involved with it? And also, what was it like for you working as sort of a day player on the show that has had such a tight-knit crew and cast and everybody's, saying goodbye and all of that?
Well, as far as everybody saying goodbye, I felt really like an outsider. But Kim knew that she was going to need help because she was very much pregnant, and so in fact the day before I started, Kim went to the doctor and then ended up in the hospital and then gave birth that night. And so my first day on the show, I walked in and realized and found out that she had just given birth. And it was a little like being in shock and sort of being thrown off the diving board into the deep end of the pool and sink or swim. And I was surprised. She had warned me how busy the show was, but I think I was really surprised by the scope about what we were trying to do for the episode. And it was rather amazing. It's when experience comes into play, but she had a really good support team. The crew had been with the show for the 2 seasons. They were very much on board with what needed to be done. They gave me great help, and it was not much time to think, just get in there and do it, is what it turned out to be.
Now, you 2 are nominated for the big finale. Just talk a bit about why that episode was submitted for your work. Obviously, David, it was submitted because it was the only one you worked on. But I guess just from a standpoint of locations and things like that, what about that episode really stood out?
I should say that I discussed with the production designer Jim Gloucester, and right away he said the finale. And I think it's just something special in that finale, how the story goes and how you get to see into the future and how these characters end. And there's nostalgia in there too with the new Oval Office, and then Selena's apartment, or Catherine's brownstone transitioning. And so I think because also the huge number of sets that David had to dress, it really showed the amount that we had to go through to get to the finale up to par of how this show should end. So Jim really wanted the finale in there, which I couldn't agree more. That's the end of the show. That's how we should go out.
David, did you want to add something?
Well, just the fact that it was such a huge undertaking with the convention and the convention center, the skyboxes at the convention center, all of the campaign booths that were being done, the skyboxes in the hotel suite, and it was really a fair amount of great new work that hadn't been seen, and also. There were a number of things that were just done for bits and pieces, the campaign film, and then wrapping it up by jumping into the future and doing that incredible, the library and the memorial vault. It was a lot of work, and certainly I think Jim and got to design a lot of wonderful new sets for it, and also just the fact that we were intercutting actual footage from the Democratic National Convention and matching it on such a huge level for a half-hour show was rather astounding. And so I think he felt like it was an amazing amount of work and therefore wanted to do it.
There's probably 7 or 8 sets that didn't even make it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? There's at least 7 or 8 that didn't even make it in there that were beautiful too. So yeah, and all season we didn't have any perm sets this season. The brownstone only came back at the end once. The Oval Office only came back for Selena. So the only perm set we really had was that hotel room that changed over 5 or 6 times. So it was a lot.
I personally got a kick out of, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what were you going to say, David?
No, and I was just going to say that hotel room was hysterical because the hallways remained and the windows kept changing and all of that. It's always fun to do that. That's the magic of shooting on a set and on a stage and reusing things, which we all really do a lot. So.
I was going to say, I personally got a kick out of the fact that the convention center was in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I'm from. So I'm sure you shot that right in my hometown, of course. But it is a really massive set because I mean it's you've got the proscenium and you've got all the little rooms in there and all that stuff. Just talk a bit about how you guys as set decorators help facilitate the creation of this massive set.
Research.
and serendipity, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's sometimes, I mean, really and truly, this whole episode was done in what, less than 3 weeks altogether from the time. So there really isn't a lot of prep time. I think Jim had thought about it a little bit more than we did, but my remembrance of it is that no one was quite sure how much we were going to do until the script is written and finalized.
Until it's written and until they scout it, and then also pick the locations at the location for the scenes, because there was so much going on in the script. And there were all these hallways, and they're in a stairwell, and then they're over here, and so it was a massive amount for David to decorate. And thankfully, the scope gets a little smaller, but it's still huge. It's still a convention center. It's still 20, 30 booths that they had to walk down, and all of the dressing that goes into that he had to do.
I also wanted to ask you about the library. Talk a little bit about that. And I mean, it's interesting too, because the Selena Meyer Presidential Library has been sort of a big running gag throughout some of the series. So talk a bit about the final design of that.
Well, we shot that at the Skirball Center here in Los Angeles. And Jim knew that, I mean, there had been some discussion that I was not in on about the vault itself and the mausoleum, but they decided at the library that since Selena it was all about her shoes and her clothing, so we decided, and we did do, and I don't think you hardly saw them, but we did 36 mannequins dressed in her clothing. And David Mandel was very much involved in the selection of the mannequins. He specifically wanted At first, he wanted headless mannequins, and then he wanted handless mannequins, and we'd auditioned about 4 different kinds, and then trying to figure out where we could get 36 mannequins in a matter of 5 days in Los Angeles. So we spent quite a bit of money, actually, coming up with that. And I mean, and I have to say, they looked great, and the wardrobe department, the costume designer was incredible about going through and selecting her favorite things. And we did do shoes, and you know, and you think sometimes this is really going to be featured, and unfortunately you just see it in the distance. But it does add a lot of depth to it, and it was great fun. At one point, there was a little walk and talk as several characters were walking by and reminiscing about Selena, but that got cut, and so the set got a little bit smaller, and they were just seen in the distance. But it was great fun, really great fun.
I wonder if you two, and maybe this is more of a question for Kimberly, since she worked on the show for a little bit longer. But David, you two, I'm assuming you were a fan as well.
Yes.
The legacy of this show. And especially considering, the times that we live in, what do you think it was about this show that I guess gave it that kind of longevity over 7 seasons?
I think it's the writing. I think it's the enormous amount of research that the writers do in talking with real politicians, and Frank Rich being a consultant on the show. That you can't believe that this is real. You can't believe that these situations really happen. And in our current climate, I think you do believe that this really happens, and or that they're replicating what has happened on Veep. I mean, the other day, the president standing in front of a seal that was fake. I was like, this could write itself. Who made the seal? Where did we get it? Like anything like that. I can't believe the things that go on now, and I have to give them credit for, I think, knowing when to end it and not making it parody what's going on. You know what I mean? Not reflecting too much what's really going on, but being smart enough to stay above it, in a sense. And I think that's the longevity, that somehow, as raunchy as it is, they kept it classy enough not to go as low as our current situation.
Before I let you both go, I wanted to ask you about your own Emmy history. Kimberly, you won your first Emmy for this show 2 years ago. I should say that I interviewed you 2 years ago about that nomination, so hopefully
You're
I'm
my
a bit
good
of
luck
good
charm,
Who knows, maybe I can strike gold for you again this year. David, you're also a 2-time nominee for your work on NYPD Blue. Just for both of you, I mean, what does that kind of recognition mean for you in your career, to get that recognition from your peers?
I think David has more than 2, don't you?
Actually, I have.
You have some daytime Emmy nominations
the
too.
daytime.
Yes. I have 4 daytime Emmy nominations. It's amazing. For me, it's been 2 for each show that I spent any time doing. But NYPD Blue was great fun, and I have to say it was a terrific honor to be nominated, and it's with great excitement, and I think it's just the recognition that's really important.
Absolutely.
And I'm certainly pleased for Kim on this, and I feel a little that, I mean, I love doing my work, and I really did a lot, and she certainly helped me a lot, as did the entire crew, and Kim certainly did an enormous amount of work on the show as well, both prepping it and then coming in between going to take care of the babies and dealing with life, it's an honor. I feel a little like, I'm riding on her coattails, but thank you.
Absolutely not. I knew that I was going to probably go early. I didn't think I'd go that early delivering. So I knew I wanted to ask someone who would be able to handle it, who would be able to jump in and really jump in, as he said, into the deep end, and who has just an enormous amount of talent, because I thought that's what this show deserves. And David filled every box, and he's such a wonderful set decorator that I was honored that he even came on. To be nominated again is really, it's the best, and it's such a great way to go out with this show. I'm so honored. I think being nominated is so much fun. I don't think you really get how exciting it is, and the lead up to it, and the parties, and it is by your peers, and it's really nice. It's all the hard work. You think, oh, okay, someone's paying attention. It's a nice thing. So I'm very honored to be nominated.
And can I just add that I think what's astounding about it is that this show had very high production value, and everybody did a lot of work. It was a very ambitious undertakings with each episode, and they were, the writing sort of underpins all of that, and it was really terrific. And the commitment that HBO made to it is rather astounding.
Yeah, I think in our 7-episode season, we did close to 140 sets that aired.
Yeah.
That I don't know if they aired actually. I know we did 142 because our scripts are like 70 pages long. So
for a half-hour show, exactly.
Sure. Yeah. We did a lot more, but what was seen was great too. So yeah.
You did a lot of building on it. A lot of infrastructure. That's a popular word in political structures. Thank you both so much for your time. Congratulations on your Emmy nominations, and good luck.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Bye now.
Thank you.
And thanks to all you at home for watching. Make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons below, and make sure you visit us at goldderby.com for all of the latest Emmy news.